Wander over yonder, in The Return to Equestria, written by Angel Shy 24. Onward to Canterlot. The sun was set and most of the town's citizens were turning in for the day to prepare the big upcoming celebration in Canterlot, and just as promised, Wander and Sylvia were able to sleep over at Twilight's castle. From there, they would join the others when they travel to Canterlot for Princess Luna's birthday celebration. As for Little Bits, she was stuck with staying with Apple Bloom for the night. She was stripped of her current outfit and placed into a small pink nightgown that belonged to a doll Sweetie Belle had. Applejack just walked into Apple Bloom's room to check on her and the unfortunate cat. "Hey there, Apple Bloom. You and your little friend all tuckered in and ready to sleep?" "We sure are," Apple Bloom shouted. "We were just settling down and getting comfortable." She then suddenly held up Little Bits, who didn't look amused, and check it out, doesn't this little sea foam green gown look cute on her? Sweetie Belle was nice enough to loan this to Snowball from one of her dolls. It fits so well on her, and she likes it. "Don't you, Snowball?" Little Bits lightly growled and thought to herself, "Shoot me." "Really, said Applejack, "can't ya let her sleep all natural like normal pets? How can you even tell if she wants to wear that while sleeping?" Apple Bloom turned Little Bits towards her and saw the light scowl on her face. "I guess ya do have a point. The Crusaders and I just figured that Snowball just like wearing outfits since we found her in one." Apple Bloom placed Little Bits down and took the gown off of her, leaving her completely clothless. "Do ya want me to put it back on?" Apple Bloom asked the irritated kitten as she held the gown back in front of her. All Little Bits did in response was bat the gown away from Apple Bloom with her paw, then glared back up at her. "Guess that answers my question. Sorry if I was doing something you didn't like. Why don't ya sleep on my bed tonight to make it up?" Choosing to continue on with act, Little Bits did a cute meow sound and then rubbed herself against Apple Bloom while purring, even though deep down it was making her sick to her stomach. "Well, all is good," said Apple Bloom to her sister. "She forgives me, see?" "Well, that's good to know," Applejack chuckled. "Now make sure to get a good night's sleep. We have a big important day tomorrow." Applejack came over to her little sister, who tucked herself in her bed covers and kissed her on the forehead. "Good night, Apple Bloom." "Good night, big sis." Applejack then saw Little Bits, who was laying beside Apple Bloom, and nervously chuckled as she just patted her on the head. Good night, Snowball." After Applejack turned off the room light and left, Apple Bloom turned over to Little Bits and gave her a little pat on the head as well. "Good night, Snowball. Yawn, don't let the bedbugs bite." It was about an hour until Apple Bloom was fully asleep, and Little Bits was patient enough wait for the right time. When everything seemed quiet, she got up, lightly tapped Apple Bloom on her head. Thankfully, Apple Bloom was deep in her sleep, and was snoring quite loudly. "Funny," Little Bits whispered to herself, "it seems that she's sound asleep. Time to make my getaway." After jumping off the bed, Little Bits came across the gown that Apple Bloom had put on her earlier. She sneered at it as she held it up and said, "This is what I think of your Whittlebwigween gown, ya ponybwats." She then gave it a good swipe with her claw, tearing it to shreds. Little Bits proceeded to go downstairs to retrieve her once again clean dress that was hanging on a clothesline, but when she went to grab it, she felt that it was still too wet for her to put it on. "What, still damp? I can't wear this." Seeing that the success of her mission was at stake, she chose to dismiss it. "Whatever, I'd wather do this completely naked instead of in that gyrewide dress anyway." Little Bits wasted no time as she headed outside in the buff to make her way to Wander and Sylvia's location. Sure enough, she was able to find her way there easily despite it being dark thanks to her night vision. There it is, the castle housing Wander and Sylvia. But suddenly, a slight chilled wind brisket past Little Bits, causing her to shiver some. "It's a bit more breezy out here than I thought. Maybe I should have put that stupid gown back on. Ugh, what am I saying? I'd wather catch a cold." Little Bits had her special backpack with her as she was making sure that everything was intact. She began walking towards the castle with a grimace smile. "Soon this will all be over. In the dark of night is where I work best. They'll never see me coming." But when she got to a close enough distance, she smacked right into an invisible wall and fell backwards due to loss of balance. Little Bits was surprised and got up close again. She lightly reached her paw forward only to feel the wall again, and she suddenly saw the whole barrier that it was part of. "What a magical barrier!" she shouted. "Are you freaking kidding me right now?" Little Bits began rapidly swiping at the barrier with her claws, but it had no effect. She then quickly sat her bag down and opened it up and took out a dual laser blaster and started firing away with them at max power. "No, not this time. I've come too far to let some stupid pony magic stop me now." When all of that failed, Little Bits took out a handheld rocket launcher and pointed it at the barrier. I'm blowing this sucker down. She fired the rocket and it landed on the barrier with explosive results. But when the smoke cleared, there was no breaks or tears in the barrier. It was all still intact. Ugh, I'm so close. Little Bits shouted in frustration as she threw the launcher down. Why did this have to happen? But then, Little Bits looked up at the castle and saw a couple of lights come on, and she saw the pony named Twilight Sparkle appear on a balcony from a tower window. Little Bits lightly said, "Dang it," as she quickly hid behind a nearby tree. She then used her ears to carefully hear out what the pony would say. Twilight yawned and was looking around her view of the castle grounds, saying to herself, I wonder what that was all about. First a loud bang sound, then some kind of shouting? Did I hear that right? And a few seconds later, she was joined by Spike, who calmly came out too and yawned while rubbing his eyes. What's going on, Twilight? What was that loud boom sound I heard? I don't know. I think something hit against the magic barrier. Thank goodness it didn't wake up Yonder and Sylvia though. I don't want to look like a bad hostess or anything. Should I check it out to see what that was? Spike suggested. Don't worry about it, Spike. I'm sure it was nothing. No pony or no thing can get through. I made sure of that. Best idea I've ever had since that incident with the bats last fall. Thinking of what Twilight meant, Spike just shuddered as he followed Twilight back into the castle. Ugh, so many fangs. Once the coast was clear, Little Bits sighed with a slight snarl under her breath and said, that was close. I can't believe my pawn was halted, again. Why couldn't I have been found and adopted by that princess? This would have been much easier. She then sighed again as she took out her communication device from her bag and stated, in any case, guess it's time to send a rain check. She activated the communicator and it linked to systems of Lord Hater's ship. After waiting a couple minutes, Lord Hater finally responded to the call with Commander Peepers by his side. However, Hater sounded irritated. What's going on? Who's calling? Once he focused on the screen and saw a small anthropomorphic cat, he knew that it was Little Bits, and he realized what was going on. Well, it's about time you called back. What in the world took you so long anyway? With the way you were bragging on earlier with talk about your stealthiness and patience, you would think you would have called back a lot sooner. Nah. Suddenly, Hater and Peepers noticed the change of Little Bit's appearance, mainly her lack of clothing. I know clothing is not always an option everywhere in the galaxy, stated Peepers, but where are yours, exactly? And why is your fur suddenly white? Yeah, why the heck are you so white? Hater shouted, weren't you a purplish, blue color or something? She was just purple, sir. Little Bits just groaned as she rubbed her forehead. Please don't ask, it's been a long, frustrating day. Well, never mind about your birthday suit, said Hater, since you've called. I'm guessing you've finally captured that pestering Yonder and his partner, Sylvia. With some sweat rolling down from her face, Little Bits responded, not exactly. She then held up the communication device up at an angle where Hater and Peepers could see the castle behind her. Yonder and Sylvia are in there fast asleep. I could easily capture them now, but the puss is protected by some kind of magical barrier, and none of my tools can't even get through it. Wow. That's unfortunate, Peepers admitted. Hater started to laugh out loud while pointing at Little Bits, amused that she had failed again. I knew it. I knew you couldn't handle this mission all on your own. I knew those goody-goody ponies were too much for ya. Ha! And why even wait until night anyway? What were you even doing during the day? Were you planning your whittle swaggies? Were you playing with a ball of yarn? Or maybe you were playing dress up? As Hater kept on going, Peepers noticed Little Bit's eyes narrowing, and one of them appeared to be twitching. She looked like she was about to go off. Oh boy. You want to know what I've been doing, said Little Bits in a nonchalant tone. Do you really want to know what I've been doing? Yeah, said Hater in a sarcastic tone. Well, first of all, everything was going peachy, like nothing could possibly go wrong. But soon after I won, I was terrorized by a dog, chased up a tree, went on a wild goose chase, got mocked and annoyed by some kind of freaky mix-up beast, got tripped up by some pony bots, got pampered and shown what seemed like unlimited cuddles and affection. Ugh. Oh, and don't get me started with the dress up stuff. I don't do dress up. And now here I am out here in the chai wet air in my birthday suit trying to complete what I was here to do in the fist puss, only to have me completely stumped, again. So do you have anything else you want to tease me about, word butt face? Lord Hater and Peepers were in sudden shock of Little Bit's outburst. They realized now that she did go through a lot. All Peepers could say was, wow. I think someone struck a nerve. Little Bits then did her best to calm down as she stated, in any case, I couldn't do anything because I needed to keep a low profile. Apparently, most of the ponies in that town know about me thanks to those two idiots, and if I reacted in any way, my cover would be blown. Then this flustwadion would be for nothing. She does make a pretty good point, said Peepers to Hater. You shouldn't have doubt her, sir. Whatever, Hater grumbled while rolling his eyes. So what's your next move to capture Wander and Sylvia since your first attempt failed so miserably? Little Bits glared at Lord Hater again and then said, a lot of ponies in this town are going to some kind big birthday so Wadion to Moao, and Wander and Sylvia are going with them. Of course I'm going to secret Y tag along without them knowing. No matter how many ponies that are going to be there, those two are going to end up being a one at some point. And when that happens, that is when you will strike, said Hater in a mocking tone. Am I right? That is what you were going to say, right? That quote is so cliché. You know what, said Little Bits, go ahead and keep it up with your stupidity. Once I get my pay from you, it will be the greatest day of my life. I'd rather deal with those pony bots than to work for you ever again. Oh, is that supposed to be an insult, said Hater sarcastically. My heart is so torn right now. Little Bits then suddenly smirked at Peepers and told him, hey, Peepers, do yourself a favor and keep your boss out of trouble. You don't want him to be blasted away by a rainbow again. Hearing her bring up that memory into his mind made Hater shake in anger with his blood boiling. He then shouted, why you, just capture Wander and Sylvia already, and don't call back until you do. Hater then cut off the video connection as he started brooding to himself. When he looked over at Peepers, he noticed that he was trying to hold in a chuckle and keep it from coming out. What are you laughing at? And nothing, sir, said Peepers nervously as he calmed down. Just laughing at how ridiculous Little Bits was acting, is all. Good, said Hater as he stormed out of the room. I'm going to catch some shut-eye, and I don't need supervision to do so. After Hater left, one of the other watchdog minions came in carrying a video camera. Peepers looked over at him and whispered, did you get all of that? Sure did. Excellent. Peepers shouted in a giddy tone, call the others. We need to watch that on the 150 flat HD screen. Back on Equestria, Little Bits chuckled to herself as she put away her communicator, picturing the last look that she saw on Hater's face. Well, I showed him. She suddenly shivered again, feeling the brisk air against her body. We need to get back to that house. At least it's warmer in there. Little Bits began heading back to Sweet Apple Acres where she knew she could rest up at. As she walked away, as she glared back at the castle and thought to herself, get a good night's sleep you two, you're going to need it. The next morning, Applejack and Apple Bloom were up and awake and preparing to make their way to the train station to meet up with all of their friends to travel to Canterlot. Little Bits was put back into her dress and was even fed when they ate. Little Bits still felt degraded being treated like a pet, but she knew she had to wait for the right moment to end her facade without any extra interference. After everything was set, Apple Bloom came outside with Little Bits where Applejack was ready for her. Yeah, up and roarin' to go, Apple Bloom? Applejack questioned. Sure am. Apple Bloom cheerfully responded. I am awake, alert and ready to have fun. But no. I kinda wish Big Macintosh would come with us. Me too, Apple Bloom, but Big Mac already made his decision to stay here and keep an eye on the farm. Granny Smith is already in Canterlot, and it's too late to hire some pony else to watch the farm. Yup, said Macintosh as he came up from behind. Yeah, I suppose so, Apple Bloom sighed. At least he'll be here to watch over Snowball here. She then turned over to Little Bits, who was purposely showing a cute, sad face like she was hating to see her leave. Apple Bloom was patting her on the head as she said, don't worry, you'll be fine without me today. Big Mac will take care of you, and then you'll see me again when I return. While continuing the act, Little Bits grumbled inside and thought, not if my plan succeeds you won't. Apple Bloom then turned to their dog, Winona, and said, remember, Winona, Snowball here is, or hopefully will be part of our family. So no chasing of trying to eat her, okay? Winona lightly grinned and licked Apple Bloom in the face. She decided to agree and let this strange cat live around the farm. Well, come on then, said Applejack, we need to catch the first train if we want to get to the party as early as possible. The two sisters were now taking their leave and leaving the caretaking of the farm to their big brother. Apple Bloom looked back and waved back at her brother and her now two pets. Bye, Snowball. Be a good girl. And Big Mac, make sure she doesn't get into any trouble. Eye up. And don't worry, we'll make sure to bring you something from the party, okay? Little Bits was carefully watching as Applejack and Apple Bloom were going away. She felt that now she could go on with the next phase of her now extended plan. Perfect. Now all I have to do is foul them without being seen, and they'll lead me straight to God. However, Before she could follow after them, Big Macintosh picked her up with his mouth and gained a good enough grip so she wouldn't get away. Come on, Snowball. Can't let ya try and follow her, now can I? Don't worry, you'll be safe with me. Macintosh was bringing her with him into the barn with Winona following right behind her. Little Bits was getting very irritated that she was being held up again and the two sisters were getting further away. Oh no, I am not being hewed back again. It's about time I make a move on this stoian, and not the quashing kind. After coming into the barn, Macintosh placed Little Bits on the ground and was about to start his morning chores. He gave Little Bits a little pat on the head and told her, "Here you go. You can play in here for now. Heh, just try not to get your dress too messy." But as he went past her, he heard a voice suddenly speak up, "I'm afwaid me getting diddy is the weast of your wowies." Macintosh suddenly froze and then slowly turned around to see Little Bits suddenly standing on her two hind legs and glaring back at him. He looked over at Winona who was staring too and hesitantly said, am I hearin' things, or did that cat just talk?" Little Bits then whipped out her bag and opened it up with her paw signature. She then took out a ray-like weapon and charged it up. "Oh, I can do more than talk. Obsuve." She pointed the weapon at him and in a split second fired it. It was too quick for Macintosh to act and he found himself suddenly trapped in a containment bubble. He was glad that it wasn't a lethal weapon, but the bubble didn't appear to be popping as he was beating against it. Whoa, what the? I can't get out. Seeing one of her family members in danger, Winona ignored Apple Bloom's orders and began running towards Little Bits barking loudly. Little Bits kept firing at her, but she kept dodging each blast and came close to catching the sinister kitty. However, Little Bits jumped over Winona at the last minute, and then shot at her from above. Winona couldn't dodge at this time and whimpered as she was now caught in a containment bubble of her own. After landing, Little Bits chuckled as she blew the smoke from the tip of her blaster and glared at Winona. "Twetty adjui, auntie ya? Let's see you try and chase me now, mutt." Trying to figure things out, Macintosh questioned, "What's going on here? You're no normal kitty. Just who the hey are you?" "Heh, wouldn't you like to know?" Little Bits chuckled as she placed her weapon away, "but I had no choice but to put on a cutesy act. I'm here on an important mission to capture we two other warriors that are here. I'm pretty sure that you know them, White." It was obvious to Macintosh that she was talking about Yonder and Sylvia. However, knowing of them and seeing the appearance of this deadly cat, it didn't take too long for him to figure it out. "Wait a minute, cute, adorable, a kitty, deadly hunter, enemy of Yonder and Sylvia. You're that little kitten assassin they mentioned, aren't ya? Bingo! And by the way, the name is not Snowball, it's Little Bits. I know it's not at all intimidating, but it still works, sorta." Little Bits then walked right up to Macintosh's face and said, "I would have captured Wander and Sylvia by now if it weren't for your dumb sister and her fween snuggling me and spoiling me with twets and affection and dwesses. Well actually, some of that wasn't so bad, but I hate dwesses. But the point is now I can be free to finish the job, and no one can stop me." As Little Bits began to walk off towards outside the barn, Winona was lightly snarling, wishing that she could get out of her bubble and tear her to shreds. "If ya hurt any of my sisters or any of their friends," Macintosh protested, "you'll be sorry." "Oh, I'm so scared of the big, strong stoian," Little Bits said sarcastically. "Well, I won't weigh a quab on any of them as long as they don't get in my way. And the same goes for you two." Little Bits got to the barn doors before she turned back around and said, "Oh, and don't wowie, those boobwees you and your mother twopton will dissipate eventually, in about 2 to 3 hours, and she laughed maniacally. After Little Bits left, Macintosh kept doing his best to bust out of his containment bubble, but he still had no luck. He just laid in his bubble and sighed as he looked over at Winona who was scratching against her bubble and whined. "Well, Winnow girl, looks like you and me are going to be stuck here for a while. That cat really got us good. I just hope Wander and Sylvia sees her comin' before she catches them off guard." But suddenly, a bright light appeared in the barn in front of Macintosh and Winona. Macintosh suddenly looked in front of them and saw a tall figure standing before them, and it even made Winona growl a bit. "Oh, it's just you." Macintosh groaned, "What are you doing here, to laugh at our expense?" The figure then did a gesture that caused the containment bubbles to disappear, setting a Macintosh and Winona free. Thank you I guess," said Macintosh awkwardly. It was getting kinda stuffy in there. And from there, the figure told him of everything that was going on with Little Bits. Macintosh couldn't believe what it said and even thought that it was crazy. "Wait, you know what's going on? You know about that cat? What's going on here? You're not secretly plotting with her, are ya?" At the Ponyville train station. Applejack and Apple Bloom were just arriving to meet up with their friends before they took off for Canterlot. Well, it looks like a lot of ponies are here already, said Applejack. I guess they want to get to the party as early as possible like we do, said Apple Bloom, so I guess we can't blame them. Just then, Apple Bloom heard a couple of voices call out her name, Apple Bloom. It was her friends, Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo, who were rushing towards her. They all hugged each other to wish themselves good morning. Hey, Sweetie Belle. Hey, Scootaloo. You two ready for one of the greatest parties ever? You better believe we are. Scootaloo responded loudly, I've been wanting to a birthday party like this since forever. So how's Snowball doing? Sweetie Belle questioned, did she like the gown that I gave to you? Well, said Apple Bloom nervously. She then took out the shredded gown that she had in a bag she was carrying. Does this answer your question? Sweetie looked at it in dismay and shouted, oh come on. That was a perfectly good blue-green gown. I guess she thought that it clashed with her fur, said Scootaloo with a light chuckle. Before I went to bed, said Apple Bloom, I did realize that she didn't like it, but I didn't know that she disliked it that much. Sweetie groaned as she continued to look at the ruined gown. Well, maybe I can have my sister look at it later. That's the last time I offer that cat an outfit. But you're not going to stay mad at her for long, are ya? Said Scootaloo. Of course not, said Sweetie with a smile, who can stay mad at her face. Hello, every pony, shouted a very familiar voice amongst the crowd. The Crusaders all knew who that was. It was their extraterrestrial traveler, Yonder, who arrived on the scene with Sylvia, Twilight and Spike. After a nice long sleep at the castle, the alien duo were fully energized and ready to take on the day. Yonder, Sylvia, you're here, shouted Apple Bloom happily. Looks like you're all ready as much as we are. That's right. Sylvia and I had a well-rested sleep at that awesome, relaxing castle, and now we're ready to get crazy. You bet your darn hooves we are, shouted Pinkie Pie, who suddenly jumped up between Yonder and Sylvia. She then just hopped off towards the crowd while keeping on a smile. Where the heck did she come from? Said Sylvia, feeling startled. Yonder then zoomed up to the train and was looking at it from all angles, feeling impressive of its details. So this is the train that will take us to the city of Canterlot and the awesome party. Pretty impressive. The details are amazing. Man, Sylvia, said Spike, you weren't kidding when you said that he's so easily impressed. He's even a little worse than Pinkie, but just a little. Well, if there's one thing I've learned about Yonder, stated Sylvia, it's like he has a whole slew of personalities inside of him. He's hard to get sometimes, but that's what makes him Yonder, I guess. Hey, Miss Sylvia, said Apple Bloom suddenly as she and the other Crusaders came up to her, how did bowling go with you and Yonder yesterday evening? Did you beat him? I kinda wish I did, Sylvia chuckled, but Yonder won fair and square. He really loves to bowl. Right on cue, Yonder came up to them and responded, yup, I sure do. So I am guessing he got a perfect 300, right, said Scootaloo. Heh, well, we're both good, but not that good. However, we got pretty close. Suddenly, the station speakers went off as everyone heard the announcement. The Ponyville Express will take off for Canterlot in about 10 minutes. Please make sure that all of your belongings are abroad and passengers are accounted for. This is all so exciting, shouted Yonder. We're not even on the train yet and I am already about to blow up. We're all pretty excited, dear, said Rarity as she walked by, but please, try to hold in some of that excitement until we actually get to the party. Can't make you any promises on that, sister, said Sylvia as everyone was getting ready to board on the train. A certain Kitty Hunter had arrived on the scene as well. Little Bits was hiding behind some barrels beside the station. Be careful to not be spotted by any of the ponies, all while keeping her eyes on her targets. There they are. I have them white in my sights. Now if only none of those idiot ponies were a wand. Ugh, this is so frustrating. Just then, Fluttershy flew in frantically and landed near Friend. Shouted, I'm here, girls. Sorry about that. I'm not too late, am I? Nope. You're right on time, said Applejack, but don't beat yourself over it. Yeah, if you had missed the train, you could have just flown to Canterlot, said Rainbow Dash. On top of saying that I won't do that, what I was doing was looking for Discord to see if maybe he changed his mind about coming, but I couldn't find him anywhere. He must be busy with something important. Thinking of her encounters with Discord, Sylvia just crossed her arm and said, something important? Sure, we'll go with that. Twilight suddenly looked down beside her where Spike tapped on her to gain her attention. Hey, Twilight, I kinda looked around the castle grounds this morning to see if I could find anything that made that sound last night, and all I found was this patch of white fur. Little Bits could see it too and said to herself, I shed? How embarrassing. Thanks anyway, Spike, said Twilight, but like I said, it was probably nothing. Now let's board that train. Right behind ya. Everyone began boarding the train one by one with Rainbow Dash being right behind Sylvia. But Sylvia couldn't help but as she faced towards the Pegasus and asked, "Say, isn't it possible for you to just fly to this Canterlot place? You are pretty fast." "I sure am," said Rainbow Dash while proudly flapping her wings, "but, as fun as that might be, I'd rather ride there and spend time with my friends," said Sylvia with a smirk. Couldn't have said it better myself." Once Twilight and all of her friends were all on the train, Little Bits held on tight to her bag as she used her stealthy moves to sneak onto the train without anyone seeing her. Once inside, she chose a seat nearby where Wander and Sylvia and the others were and stayed under it against the wall. Look at those two. Little Bits lightly chuckled, looking all happy and relaxed, when they have no idea of the fate that will soon befall them. Victory will soon be mine. Suddenly, Little Bits felt the underside of the seat she was under pressing down her body against the floor. She coughed and gagged and was struggling to get free, but it proved to be difficult. The giant blue-green pony who sat there irked a bit, feeling that something was poking her from below. "Whoa Nelly, it feels like there's a lump in my seat." However, with the combination of the pony shifting around, Little Bits continued to struggle underneath her until she was finally able to pull out. "Never mind, it's gone," said the pony with a light smile. Little Bits was under the next seat over and was harshly gasping for breath. What the heck just sat there just now? A cow? Not wanting to be another surprising lump under someone's seat, Little Bits decided to head off to the train's caboose area. "I'm better off hiding in the caboose. At least no heavy pony butts will be sitting on me there." Meanwhile with the others, "So how's that cute little kitty of yours by the way?" said Wander leaning towards the Crusaders. "Is she doin' well?" "Yeah, she is," said Apple Bloom. "She's back at the barn with my brother who's watchin' over the place while my sister and I go to this awesome party." "What?" Sylvia shouted suddenly as she stood up in her seat. "You mean your brother isn't coming?" "'Fraid not," Applejack chuckled. "It was his decision alone. But don't worry, we'll have fun with or without him." "But, why do you sound so upset?" Lightly sweating, Sylvia calmed down and sat back down in her seat saying, "Oh, and nothing, it's nothing. It's no big deal. You're absolutely right." She then slumped a little as she softly said to herself, "There goes my little piece of eye candy." Pinkie suddenly popped up in front of her friends again shouting, "This party is going to be awesome. Just wait until you two see what's going to be there. Games, rides, awesome band performances, many famous faces, and so much more. You're going to love it." "As you told them hundreds of times," said Rarity with a smirk. "And it's just as great to hear it every time," said Wander as he was scooting around on his seat. "Wow, these seats are super comfy." Suddenly, the station speaker came on again. "All aboard. Now heading for Canterlot. Please keep all hooves inside the train at all times." Wander then looked at his friends and wiggled his eyes as he said, "Good thing I don't have any hooves." Then he stuck out his head and waved his arms and hands out as the train began to advance forward. "Yeah, we're going to Canterlot." Sylvia just shook her head and chuckled as she relaxed in her chair and began dozing off. "Someone wake me when we get there. Something tells me this is going to be a wild and crazy day." Back at the caboose area, Little Bits was hiding in a shadowy corner, still slightly hyperventilating from being directly sat upon. Knowing the train was moving, she began rummaging in her special bag, making sure that she was fully prepared for anything. "I will not allow these pesky ponies to keep getting in my way. I am a bounty hunter, and no matter what, one way or another, revenge will be mine." Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video make sure to like and leave a comment and share it with a friend. See you all later.